Good evening and welcome to Self-Care for Individuals with Autism and Their Family Members. My name is Michael Morrier, and I'm the Program Committee Chair for the Atlanta Autism Consortium's Board of Directors. The Atlanta Autism Consortium is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating collaborating conversations about the Metro Atlanta autism community and beyond. We host free programs just like this one on a wide range of topics, and we're so glad that you joined us this evening. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping notes. Please know that as an attendee, your microphone and camera will remain muted, but you can ask questions you have throughout the program in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Additionally, we'll be emailing out the contact information for our panelists to the email address that you use to register for the program so that you can contact them directly with any questions you might have. Tonight, we are trying to gather some information on who attends the programs and how the program committee may be able to tailor these programs to better meet the needs of registered participants. There will be a link entered in the chat during the changeover between our panelists and again after our Q&A session at the end. We would greatly appreciate everyone completing this survey so we can better know who attends our programs and what you would like to hear in the future. I want to thank you all in advance for your participation, and please know this survey is completely voluntary. Okay. Tonight, we are joined by Leilani Banaszak and Dr. Stephanie Holmes. Leilani is a vocal advocate for mental wellness, emphasizing the significance of self-care. Her courageous story has a proven track record for breaking stigma, allowing others to understand that they're not alone in their journey. Her goal is to position others for a more expansive perspective, facilitating their triumph and enabling their story to benefit those around them. Dr. Stephanie Holmes is a certified autism specialist, but her real credentials come from living and thriving in a neurodiverse family system. Formerly an LPC in the state of North Carolina, Stephanie's journey into autism began when her eldest daughter was diagnosed with what was then called Asperger's syndrome. Shortly after, her youngest daughter was diagnosed with PDD, NOS, and ADHD. Then in 2019, her husband Dan was also identified on the autism spectrum. Stephanie and her family wrote about their family journey in a four-person perspective in their book released in December 2023, Embracing the Autism Spectrum, Finding Hope and Joy in Your Neurodiverse Family Journey. Dr. Stephanie is now a life coach with a focus on neurodiverse marriage and family systems. And we'll put a link to her website, to both speakers' websites in the chat during this presentation so you can access it to get more information. And with that, I'd like to welcome Leilani and have her start our presentation on self-help and for individuals with autism and their family members. Welcome, Leilani.
Hey, thank you so much, Michael and Susan. Thank you so much for having me. This is a complete honor. And every single one that just cleared your schedule to be on tonight, this is awesome. Thanks for the support, because I know that you guys are not going to regret it tonight. So before I share the screen, my name is Leilani Banaszak, and I am a huge advocate for self-care. And She is Armored is raising the importance of self-care and helping propel fiercely towards freedom when conquering mental health. So I'll go ahead and start introducing myself. Here we go. My name is Leilani, and I'm Hawaiian, Filipino, and Spanish. I am a wife. I became a foster mom a year ago. I have a teenager and I have a fourth grader. So I went from no kids to having kids, my husband and I, and we have loved it. It has really changed our life. I was born in Dallas, raised, but I am now residence in Atlanta. Things that make me come alive are water views, walking the city, espresso. Forgot to put in their combat boots because I love anything fighter, family, my dogs, and fighter movies, and put me around Latin music and tacos, and I come alive. So reason why I just shared about what makes me come alive is because we're going to find out what makes you come alive, because that ties in with self-care. What do I do, and what is She is Armored? She is Armored is helping women propel fiercely towards freedom. And I understand it as a mix, males and females on here. So I just want you guys to take this and apply it to you, because this can actually apply to everyone that carries a role in life. She is Armored is also, I have a styling background, so it's building confidence through virtual wardrobe services. So yes, I shop for people. We pick out outfits for their events. And then if you feel like you have nothing to wear in your closet, we shop your closet. One of the biggest highlights for She is Armored is my greeting card line that I just launched. All like a lot of women sell their spend money on all the shoes, and that's where all their money goes. Mine went to all of our money went to greeting cards. And it hit me like a light bulb. Excuse me, it hit me like a light bulb, like, hey, you know what? Greeting cards are like $10, and I wanted to make it reasonable for some people, for people to be able to just purchase and encourage someone at such a cheaper price, just with this economy going on. And also, one of the biggest, most important things for She is Armored is I carry self-care tools to strengthen mental health with vulnerability. And then right on the bottom right is my QR code. If you wanted to scan that it takes you straight to the website, and then you'll have some more time at the end if you don't get to it now. And I'll give you a couple seconds. So moving on, transparency is the key to healing. And if you would like to go ahead and start, you can follow me on Instagram on the left and follow us on Facebook on the right. But I say this too as I'm talking. Transparency is the key to healing. My personal journey, if I had not heard people that were vulnerable with their story of how they conquered with victory, I don't know if I could have honestly done it on my own. And when you hear somebody else's story, that is transparency, and that is the key to beginning of healing. And I am not like the hugest fan of always being on social media. I actually am old school. I like to read articles in the magazines. However, I know that there are times I've scrolled a story on Instagram or I've scrolled a story on social media, and it just every day, you can never be overeducated on mental health and to be inspired. But here is my story, and these are facts. And then we're going to get down to the bottom 3 bullet points, and those are also facts. My story, I was known as an encourager. I was always happy on the outside. I was always helping people. Here's some more truths. I was struggling with anxiety and depression. Inside, I felt trapped and I felt shame, and I was in denial because I thought I would fail people if I was vulnerable with my story. But after choosing healing and healthy, I realized I had a story to help others. Once I positioned myself in aerial view, and that's what She is Armor is all about, is when you position yourself in aerial view, you see the entire picture and the bigger picture, that you have a story and that your story can become someone else's survival guide. We're not going to have time to go into the video, but endorphins are obviously, they're happy chemicals. They're types of neurotransmitters that our brain carries. Probably the most important POV on this is we need to make sure that our neurotransmitters are at high levels, excuse me, in order for self-care to activate, because self-care is it's so vital in our life right now, and it's they need to activate in order for us to release endorphins so we can improve our mood and improve our comfort in life. So here's my point of raising self-care, because there are some myths about mental health, and my point is to break the stigma of mental health. When you think of mental health, automatically you probably think of the girl in the hospital or the person in the hospital or the one that just continuously takes meds and they're not there like mentally. And I want to break some of this stuff because it's not just about the girl in the hospital. It doesn't define who you are. Being vulnerable with your challenges does not show signs of weaknesses. Therapy is not a waste of time. It is very vital in your life for anybody. It can start as minor as stress, but if we don't take the stress and nip it in the bud, it can lead to other levels of mental health. You're not alone. You'll be misunderstood. No, you won't be misunderstood, because you'll be surprised at how many people are actually walking through your story as well. Your future is not sabotaged because your future is bright. And once we can get out of that pit and start moving forward, we'll realize that there is a purpose and that we have a bright future ahead of us. Facts about mental health. It can be minor stress. And I can imagine COVID, the stress that it just started beginning to like increase in people's minds, from economy to health to feeling like you're going to be locked down for the rest of your life. It was a very tough, challenge for people. You can overcome with the right resources. There's so many resources out there. Your freedom is someone else's survival guide. Therapy is vital. You are not alone. Others are walking through it, and they're champion with you when you will shine. We all know about Rocky. You can't beat the person who never gives up. If we can knock these myths out, the champion in us will definitely shine. The why behind She is Armored is to educate others and shift perspectives of what mental health really looks like so we can take care of ourselves and look out for others, to disarm stigma, to inspire others through vulnerability so that they are all aware that they are not walking alone. This is not just freedom for you, but freedom for others. I think we walk around and we don't know what to say to people, that if we know of someone that struggles with mental health, because we don't want to, create the awkwardness, or we don't want to say something that's wrong. And I think inside this could be a lot of us. Educate me, just educate me, like teach me what this is, teach me what the perspective really is about mental health. And that is exactly what got my heart, because when I started realizing I was struggling with depression, anxiety, ADHD, it could be a downfall of like looking down on yourself. But if you can educate yourself, people with autism and people with ADHD, they're some of the most brilliant people that I have found out. And I have just really admired that industry and that area of it. Education is the key that unlocks the golden door to freedom. What is self-care? Happy endorphins. Endorphins are natural brain chemicals that can improve your sense of well-being, taking your mind off of worries. Self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve and improve one's own health. But in order for endorphins to activate, we have to make a choice to step forward to making choices of getting healthier. They are hormones that are released when your body feels pain or stress, and they are produced in your brain and act as messengers in your body. Endorphins are produced to help relieve pain, reduce stress, and help improve mood. Okay, so this is like entire point of POV of tonight's message on self-care. So picture yourself as this engine, and we are strong on the outside. We look really like bulletproof. We look really motivated, like we're gonna fly everywhere, and we're like go 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 all the time. We've always got these obligations and responsibilities. And so I had an opportunity to go to an aviation museum in Tennessee, and I ran across this display, and I was just so captivated by it. But it's the R4360 Wasp radical piston aircraft engine. It is known as the largest displacement aviation piston mass produced in the US. The engine was used in strategic bombers. And my whole point of this is we can look strong on the outside, but we all know aircrafts, cars, they all always have to go in for maintenance checks. Our engine, what does the oil look like in our engine? Because military grade is required for aircraft engines. And if we're looking strong on the outside, but we're going to crash on the inside if we're not using self-care and we're not going in for maintenance checks. And I'm going to get into that later, but that is accountability. That is saying no to boundaries. That is not overcommitting yourself. Are we keeping an eye out how we respond to our adrenaline? Our engines will go nonstop and eventually crash. If you ever watch a war movie, you will see the soldiers just like they'll get shot and they'll still shoot people, and they're running, and they don't stop. And I'm like, I'm a 24 fan, and I'm like, how in the world does this happen? And it's because I found out that our adrenaline has high tolerance for pain. So on our mental side of it, we can just go, 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 and we're not taking care of the wounds. We're not taking care of offense. We're not taking care of unforgiveness. If we're not taking care of just whatever wound has happened, if it was a marriage or if it was a family member, if those things eventually, you can cover those up with Band-Aids, but eventually they're going to get infected if we don't take care of the wound inside and go into surgery for that. Okay, so if you are in the 90s, the 80s, whatever era you were born in below, you would understand what this is. If you're above 90s, I'm not sure, you're like, what in the world is this sheet? This, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is the balance sheet we balance on with our checkbooks, which I don't ever see anymore because everything's so technical. But I want you to look at this is how your self care looks like. So we all know that what negative withdrawals are. If we have a lot of negative withdrawals, then we're not. I mean, we're gonna go bankrupt, right? So negative withdrawals can look like we're overbooked with commitments, or maybe our kids' recreational. There's too many activities going on, too many community obligations, circle drama, your friends, family drama, dog drama. I laugh, but sometimes I'm working in my office and I just have to get away because sometimes I have two German shepherds and they're just drama sometimes because they feel like they own the neighborhood. So it's just kind of finding that safe, quiet space when you need to just really decompress. Financial obviously can be a negative withdrawal in our life. So if you look over here and we talk about the stock market, we have stocks, right? When you invest, but we see this value increasing, we want to keep it there. But then when we see the stock market go down, we see the value decrease and we see that we're going to lose money if we don't pull out, right? We need to look at our lives, whatever commitments we're committed to, whatever it is. Maybe we were supposed to invest for a season, maybe at your church or your community, maybe you're on a committee, but maybe it's time to pull out because you know what? Maybe you're losing value of yourself, of self care, and not having time for yourself because time is commodity. Is it time to cash out for peace? No joke. Back at home in Alabama, I was on like 6 committees and I was like the guinea pig for saying yes. And I just like, it just hit me. And I look back and I'm like, that was crazy. I don't know how I did that. But now I understand like the importance of self care. What are some fun activities that make you come alive? And I just want you to start thinking about this. Is it running? Is it painting? For me, it was taking a scooter in Buckhead and we went out with our family and it was just like so fun. It was so decompressing. Is it staring at water and doing nothing? Whatever floats your boat, I want you to start thinking of some things that make you really come alive. Self-care technique that I highly recommend is community. Laughter is the sound of the soul dancing. I was just like, you know what? I need some community and I need to be able to like have those friends that are just loyal and maybe you don't get to talk every day, but you can just call up a mama and be like, hey, can we just go get some coffee? And so I guarantee you, if you find those loyal friends, they're always going to be there. That was my birthday. They were all busy. You can't get offended. People get busy, but just throw yourself a birthday party. And I did it. And it was so much fun because we just hung out and we talked and laughed. Finding a community event, if that's at your church, this is, my faith community. We had a women's gathering and I wore sneakers and they had a candy bar and swings and we just listened to some inspirational speaking and that was just like enough for me. I mean, it was nothing serious. It was just like all like laughter, fun, and girlfriend time. My whole motto is find your tribe, love them hard, stick to them because you can't walk alone in life. Staying active is huge. Regular exercise has many mental health and emotional benefits. One is that you gain confidence. Small exercise goals, or you don't have to have a goal. Just getting out there, getting your endorphins released if that's a good hike. And you also get some more social interaction. Just sharing a friendly smile is actually, as you walk around your neighborhood, can help your mood. And I didn't realize this, but when you smile more, your mood can change for sure. Explore small towns. Exploring small towns, I'd never thought about it, but as a small business owner now, when I go to small towns, I just think about like that's Blue Ridge up there, the apple orchards, and I just think that one person that planted the apple tree and where it took them, and now would look at the orchard that they actually are able to open up and entertain the community with, and just help people and just make a difference in their life. I would encourage you to get out there and visit a small town. Ball Ground, Georgia was awesome. That's like an hour away from us. We're north of Georgia. That right there is, if you guys are Hallmark fanatics, that is where they filmed Homestead, right there in that spot. in that little clip right there in Dahlonega. So just start exploring like adventures. You'd be surprised at how inspired you would feel. And the people that started coffee, it has changed everyone's life. That is really honestly, it could be a bad habit. But however, I think at the same time, you just kind of just go with like a balance in your life. And I think about the person who created coffee or all the coffee farmers and where it took them. And now it's just like the industry is like endlessly like huge. Another self-care technique is others, helping others. It's getting your eyes off of people. I'm sorry, getting your eyes off of your situation sometimes. Even though there's no dismissing situations, everyone's pain is value and it's real. But sometimes when you do get out there and you get out of like your situation, out of like kind of the coming out of the pit and just put your eyes on other people and just be able to help them, it just something it shifts your perspective in life. And then you're given hope and it releases endorphins because it feels rewarding. One of the highlights of this is COVID. My husband and I just realized that there are like students at Georgia Gwinnett who were just trapped overseas during COVID. So the community pulled together and we just went out there and we just did pizza and just like really just loved on people. Boundaries. This is where it goes back to the check balance book. You don't need to apologize for saying no. No is okay. Having the courage to believe someone else could do the job. It took me a long time to learn that because I'm all the OCD in me. You don't need to apologize for doing what's best for you, speaking up for yourself, saying no to what you don't want, not explaining your decisions. Healthy answers could be without feeling obligated. It's not a good fit right now for me. It's not in my family's best interest right now. My schedule is full. I'm not able to do it. I'm in chill mode and I need to take advantage of decompressing while I have the time. If that person can understand this, then that person understands healthcare and they're going to understand, you know what? She can't do it right now. She just needs to decompress. And this is what we really look like. We're like, I'm fine, but this is what we look like on the inside, or we're just exhausted. And sometimes this is what we look like when our football team loses, right? For some people, they can take it hard. Reading instead of screening. So when these devices started coming out, it just really got my attention the past few years of how crazy like devices can just get our attention. So I did some research on reading instead of screening, the positive effects of reading and how much more that can improve what too much screening can do for the effects on your brain. So these are just some bullet points that helps you fall asleep when you do read. It improves your memory. It increases empathy because you put yourself in if it's like a nonfiction story or a fiction story. It enhances the brain connectivity and brain rewiring for children. And this is just an article below. It takes you to what a library does for your brain and just being able to be in a quiet space. The negative effects on screening can disrupt sleep patterns, can impair social and emotional development. It can wear out the brain's pleasure centers, can hinder our focus. This is crazy, affects children's behavior. This is an article below where there's a news station in Atlanta that did an interview with a mom and the child. I think he was like 3 years old. They took the device away from him and he had a temper tantrum. And it's because he had been on the device so much that his brain was sending him a message that he can't live without the device. So just looking at how young kids do have phones, it's just something to really reconsider if maybe that's something you're struggling with someone in your family. When life gives you mountains, put on your boots and hike. I love waterfalls. This is Firefox Park in Tennessee. I can't remember where the other waterfalls are, but just standing in front of a waterfall, it's just something refreshing to the soul. And then I have two German Shepherds, and I love to walk them in the woods. And so they are the best dogs. They're honestly the best companions, but they really are kind of like human. If you have a dog and they just act human instead of dog. Okay, so I can't control everything in my life, but I can control what I put in my body. This isn't me at 33 years old on the left. I drink a gallon of Milo sweet tea every other day. No joke. I was on the road a lot, eat a lot of processed McDonald's food, and I was working like 3 jobs, and I didn't think I was ever like really, really, really big or anything. I didn't really struggle with that, but what I realized is how lethargic and how lazy I was about what I had downloaded in my system. This is like the craziest thing. This is 33 years old. This is me now. And it wasn't no magic diet pill, no magic diet. I did the Mediterranean. That was just healthy for me. Um, it was just changing my eating habits. I started getting more sleep. I started saying no to boundaries. I didn't have the supernatural magic pill. It was just steps. And I think we just get intimidated when we go into the gym and we have these unrealistic goals. Why? Because comparison is a thief. And that is what can happen to a lot of us. I started out with 30 minutes with elliptical watching HGTV, and I just worked myself from there. And I still don't have these goals today, but I know what's vital is just getting exercise. These are just different options for a diet for there's gluten out there, there is vegan, there is Mediterranean. I would just encourage you to go out there, find the best fit for you, talk with your doctor if it has anything to do with your health. I can't recommend anything, obviously, but I just want you to encourage you to go out there and find out what's the best fit for you. Gym cardio is another big thing for me. As I was just talking about, just the elliptical for 30 minutes a day. Um, it led me to, I ended up working my way up to the boot camp. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't pass military boot camp for sure. But however, I love that I was able to challenge myself. I started doing Zumba, and nobody watches you dance, so don't, if you can't dance, it's okay, just go out there and have fun. And I just fell in love with the Zumba and found a good group of girls to do Zumba with. Water aerobics is also fun. It's just whatever floats your boat, whatever is a good fit for you, no judgment. I love water life, sunrises, Santa Rosa Beach. Jet skis make me come alive. I love the wakeboard, the paddleboard. I'm just learning. That was my first day ever doing that. I got I loved it. I had to learn a lot of patience about myself, but it just taught me a lot about life. Okay, so it's game time, guys. So like I love anything soccer. I love anything football. Do I know all the play-by-plays? No, I don't. My husband was in sports broadcasting when I met him, and so I told him that God spared him. He's an Ohio State fan. I told him God spared me because I never even chose a football team when I lived in Alabama. If you know about rivals, they're rivals for Alabama and Auburn. This is the time we lived in Alabama, and like I went to my first game, and I was like, man, this is just like amazing for me. Like the energy, the loudness, and I know sometimes situations are, you know, are not helpful for loud atmospheres, if that makes any sense. But I would encourage you to go on a date night with your spouse if you have a role and you're taking care of certain situations. Just get out there and just have fun, whatever is a good fit for you. Again, if it's going to like to get grab a burger at Taco Mac and just watching a game together or doing something fun, just get out there and have fun. Like take the serious hat off and just laugh and go back to being just a child again inside. This is so cool. A true story. I started getting into art, and I have a like a little small line of home decor as well. But I did some like just reading, and the deep activation of brain systems through art reduces stress and creates happiness. This means less doctor visits, at least in a case study with the ArtLift Arts on Prescription Project. And in England, ArtLift serves patients with a wide range of conditions from depression to chronic pain to stroke. True story. These patients that were referred to an 8-week course involving poetry, ceramics, drawing, mosaic painting, a cost benefit analyst showed a 37% reduction in GP consultation rates and a 27% reduction in hospital admissions because people started discovering self-care and techniques. I want to talk about this girl. I choke up every time, so excuse me. She was challenged with autism and just a young age, situation at school, didn't have confidence. She went from school to becoming an advocate, understanding her story, and took it to legislation and got a bill passed to help disability to be able to be treated fairness with pay, just like everybody else. And she is out, she speaks, she's probably like late mid-20s now, but she started speaking when she was like 18. And she is just an inspirational story for sure. I also am a styling. I had a styling background and I still do. I would just help people put their clothes together. But what really got my heart was when we stood in front of mirrors. And if you're a woman, like you understand like the insecurities that we carry. And it would just break my heart just to hear how much they could be hard on themselves. And so we would just stand in front of mirrors, and it probably kind of was a little bit brave for me to do this, but I would make them talk to the mirror and make them tell the mirror who they really are. And I would just see freedom. And I would just encourage you. Another self care technique is standing in front of the mirror and telling the mirror who you are and taking back what the mirror says to you. And you take ownership of that mirror and you tell the mirror who you've been created to be and that you were made to be beautiful and you were created lovely. So you have a story. One day you will tell your story of how you've overcome what you're going through now, and it will become part of someone else's survival guide. You have a story. Little did I know that the door would open through my community and surroundings to just be vulnerable and just to let the people know that you're going to make it. And it doesn't matter your background, all walks of life has a story and they struggle. And but there's a story that you are to use that's been put in your heart to be able to help people. And you don't have to go out there and tell all your stuff, but it sometimes being present for someone is is some of the most powerful opportunities to just to let someone know that you're there for them, even when you feel like you can't connect them in every area. Transparency is the key to healing. If you wanted to tie this right back and circle back to it, because now that you've heard my story, I just want to encourage you that there's stories out there that can really encourage you and to let you know that you're not alone. And this is just the QR code for Instagram. If you have your phones with you, I'm posting insight on self care a lot. And I don't post every single day, but I try to get it out there. And then there's Facebook. I am more on Instagram. But hey, it's whatever floats your boat and whatever it can encourage you. And it's not even about me, it's just getting out there and finding out stories that can really inspire you and your community and resources. And if you need me to go back, let me know, or I can send some things to Michael and or Susan. They can get it out there for you. So no man lives on an island by himself. Top Gun is my movie a favorite. In fact, my family's like, oh my gosh, no more Top Gun, please. But I love Top Gun because every time it just reminds me of like positioning yourself, understanding you're an aerial view of the whole entire picture, and that everything that your wings are strong and that you could fly above any storm, any chaos that you go through. If you guys have seen Top Gun, Talk to Me Goose, that was his best friend, and they had techniques. And I want to ask you, who's your goose? Do you have a friend that you can share your heart with, or your struggles, or do you have a friend where you can just go hang with and have fun? Sometimes those resources look like your school counselor. Sometimes they're community leaders, your faith community, your community. I highly recommend a community leader just because they are networked with so many great, phenomenal people out there. If it's a friend or family member, support group, small group at your faith-based community, a small group in your work, if you guys go hang out, here are some resources. If you know anybody that's struggling with wanting to give up, this is a phone number you can call. And if you are struggling yourself, there is no judgment. This is a phone number that you can always also call. these are links and I can send them to you, but this will help you find a provider. And this is just repeated information that I just talked to you about before. And that was actually something else. So sorry about that. And I just thank you guys for your time and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Leilani. That was great information, especially that being able to say no. I think we were talking about that before, and we let everyone in, and that took me a long time to learn to,
Yeah.
say no and let someone else do some of the work that we all take on. So, thank you for that. Just one question, a couple questions that came through that I think, related to your presentation specifically is, would a lack of daily showers reduce endorphins and increase vulnerability for someone? Because you had said something about, increasing your endorphins there. And then also, if you've experienced trauma in your youth and have a hard time trusting people, so that you have a hard time making friends, do you have any suggestions for self-care that can help with that?
So relationship building it takes time for people to understand what safety and trust looks like. And I would encourage you to, here's what I would say. This is why I always say community leaders are good because they're networked with faith-based communities, they're networked with like resources. But even just maybe asking them if there are just any small groups, because you can always start with a small group. And then that's how you start getting to know people and know relationships through small groups, because then you're able to connect with somebody and you can be able to start building that trust. And then I'm so sorry, the first one, what was that again? The question?
Like if you take showers every day,
Yeah.
or daily showers, does it increase your endorphins and allow you to be less vulnerable?
Yes. So I think I think we always need to be vulnerable when we get to that place. What happens is fear for the antonym of fear, the acronym is false evidence appearing real. So I think sometimes when we live in fear, we feel like we're not going to be able to trust anyone or no one's for me or they're not going to understand. And I think that's crucial to understand that that is a fear thing based in your life. And I think it's just important that you give somebody a chance. You don't have to put your whole self out there. But back to the showers, I will say sitting in a sauna actually has helped me, or sitting in a steam room at the gym has also helped me. Showers, hey, I'm all about Calgon. If you guys remember Calgon, take me away, please. But however, just fixing yourself like a hot bath, a hot tub, and just sitting there, absolutely doing nothing, putting on some soft music, lighting a candle, reading a book. I wouldn't encourage you to get on your screen in the bathtub. Number one, it's not safe. Number two, the whole purpose of you decompressing is getting away from the commute, like the world and all the stuff going on, and just being able to think clearly. Did that help you? Did I answer the questions?
I believe it does. Thank you.
Yep.
We'll see if the person who asked it has any other questions, as they come through. So as we switch speakers, I am putting a link in the chat for people to complete a brief survey, so that we can gather some information on who is attending our programs, as well as how the program committee may be able to meet some of your preferences for future programs as we plan for the rest of the year. So it is voluntary. I just want everyone to know that, but the more information we get, the better we can meet your needs. And as we switch over, I now welcome Dr. Stephanie Holmes, who again brings a unique perspective of, being within a neurodiverse family. And hopefully we can get as much, and I'm sure we will, get as much great information from her as we have gotten from Leilani. So welcome, Dr. Holmes.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. My topic, or what I like to talk about, is embracing the autism spectrum and finding hope and joy, navigating neurodiverse family journey. So we'll kind of jump into that. Hopefully it is advancing. There we go. So many of you probably already know this, but our prevalence is increasing. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder or issue, with a current prevalence, CDC would say 1 in 36. But if you kind of look back over the years, I was in graduate school in the 90s, And so they were telling us we might not really ever meet anybody on the spectrum, much less ever meet somebody coming into therapy, because I was a trained counselor. And most of what I learned about autism in the 90s is not accurate, and many myths and stigmas that need to be debunked. More and more families have a child on the spectrum, and boys, 1 out of 34. We used to believe autism was more of, quote, a boy issue. And so we were seeing rates at 10-1. Now we're seeing 3-1 boy to girl. And something that I think is really important for families to look at, in 2019, a 2.1 million participant study. I need to kind of focus on that number. There are studies out there that will tell you, red M&Ms give you cancer, and maybe 200 people were researched. So a 2.1 million participant study is a huge study amount, and it showed an 80% hereditary rate in autism. So what that means is that once a child or grandchild is diagnosed or assessed, probably a parent or grandparent was missed in what we call the lost generation of autism, when we were switching from diagnostic criteria to 3-4, then 4-5. There are people who were missed. So when you start finding a child or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew, probably in the family. And so that's going to talk a little bit more than about family dynamics, which is certainly, which was part of my family story. So this family here looks pretty awesome. Like there's not too much going on in the world. I mean, it's Christmas, everybody's decked out for dinner. But behind the scenes, I put when we're not posing. Sydney is my eldest, there to the right, holding the dog. She was first diagnosed with Asperger's and some mild OCD. Erica's all the way to the left. She was diagnosed PDD NOS and then later ADD. And then my husband, Dan, in 2019. And then Dawson, who was supposed to be an emotional support animal, has his own anxieties and allergies. So he has not really been living up to his job. When one of the girls would have anxiety, he would be rushing away. He's like, I'm not dealing with your anxiety. I have my own anxiety. So when I talk about the stressors that can come in the neurodiverse family system, I certainly don't want you to hear that autism or the autistic person is the stressor. I want to talk about the impacts on family, because there's a lot of things going on. And that could start, one of the first stressors is just the diagnostic process itself. If someone was what used to be Asperger's or high functioning autism, and they don't have any intellectual issues and they're not struggling in school, then those students might get missed, because usually in the school system with Child Find, they're looking for students who are struggling. And so if the child isn't struggling academically, but struggling in other ways, they might get missed. Also culturally, different cultures view having different diagnoses or labels differently. Different church and faith communities view diagnoses and labels differently. So getting the right provider, or if you have insurance or getting to a clinic, our process took almost 2 years to get the full diagnosis. Of course, there are behaviors, emotional dysregulation that can come with the spectrum. And so again, as a family unit, that might affect where you go and who you go with and how you go. And so life works a little bit differently. The autism criteria are, they're technically the same for male and female in the DSM, yet they're going to manifest differently in girls. And girls on the spectrum tend to mask more or mimic a little bit more socially. So that might make it a little bit more difficult. And certainly for girls on the spectrum who might not even be diagnosed until their, mid to late 30s, the life that they have been leading undiagnosed, not knowing why they're different, and burnout and stressors that they experience. One of the leading researchers in autism, Dr. Tony Atwood, would say that autism is rarely in and of itself, quote, autism pure. There is usually a comorbidity with autism or a secondary diagnosis. And so that also gives us different manifestations and differences from person to person, because it may not just be male to female presentation, but there might be a secondary diagnosis there too, which then impacts that individual differently. There's various protocols, there's finances and cost of those protocols, which are very stressful. Sometimes marriages and families with an autistic member can feel like they're living in isolation. There's physical exhaustion, the education process that you go through as a parent, just to kind of understand what's going on for you. for me, I was a licensed professional counselor, so I had a little bit of a leg up, but really not much. There, understanding what autism or Asperger's and developmental disorders and delays were didn't help me become a better parent. It certainly gave me a little bit of leg up of education, but then the doing and all of the things that are going to come with the diagnosis. Time management, which I'll kind of piggyback on what our previous speaker was talking about, all the things that happen and learning to manage your time for self-care. That will be a little bit that I talk about at the end. But all the different things that are going to happen and be part of your family system, becoming a good manager of time and boundaries and knowing who to say no to is going to be very important. One of the biggest stressors that marriage and family can encounter is ignorant people and the things that they say and their advice, like just spank them more, or just do this, or just pray it out of them. We had that because we're in a church community. So ignorant people and their advice and how they treat you and members of the family as a huge stressor, because that leads to isolation. And then emotional process of acceptance. Each parent of the child or grandparents might have different timelines and different levels of how they accept what's happening. And then we're going to talk a little bit then about church and school issues. So whatever your house of worship or faith may be, your experience in a neurodiverse family, you will not typically have a school experience or a faith experience that is going to be typical. In some research that I've been doing, only 11 to 14% of evangelical churches are equipped and able to help children on the spectrum or developmental disorders. And so in America, with a lot of churches, I'm specifically talking about the evangelical faith, they are just not equipped. They don't have teachers, they don't have classrooms. And so if a child isn't able to go to church, then parents are not going to be able to go to the house of worship. So that's really a whole family that's going to be affected. Your school experience, if you have to deal with a 504 IEP, is not a typical put your child on a bus, they're at school all day, and then they come home and you have a snack and do your family stuff. That is not going to be your typical day if you have an autistic student. The stressors that come with dealing with the school, sometimes you'll have a great IEP team, and sometimes you have a terrible IEP team. Some people get autism, some people don't get autism, administrators, paras, and then switching schools. Every year you have a different IEP team. So your school and just your faith, the things that are supposed to be your community, are going to be different and could potentially be stressors. And then there's all the therapies and protocols that you might have. And so in the middle, I put spiritual practices and mindfulness. And all of this has already been talked about with our previous speaker. But spiritual practices and mindfulness could be your religious faith practices, but it could be as simple as helping yourself come alive, helping your spirit come alive. And if that is through museums or wineries or being out in nature or yoga or mindfulness practices, things that help you spiritually, and also not neglecting the spirit of the person on the spectrum, the child or the adolescent. So that to me is kind of key of the self-care and the stress reduction and all of that, because in addition to things that could cause stressors to your family is all the different people that are going to be part of your life. Your CBT therapist, your social communication, social skills therapist. There might be medication, so you might be dealing with doctors, specialized diets, sometimes occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. There's all kinds of therapists that become part of your life, which are there to be helpful. And I am for all of them, and they were all very helpful in the life of our family, but it does mean more people and more moving parts that are part of your family that kind of can also be stressors and helpers at the same time. When I was introduced, our book was mentioned. So for kind of the rest of the story, our family decided to write this book together. Both of my girls are now adults and they are married. And one of the things the book really helped do is, even for my own family, see each other's perspectives a little bit better. There has been maybe some hurt between my two girls as sisters, and so they kind of write from their sister perspective. And then my husband was later in life diagnosed, and Erica, who is non-autistic, kind of wrote a little bit of her perspective of, not knowing your dad's on the spectrum. And one of my favorite lines was, the fact that dad thought sitting in silence was relationship forming was mind blowing to me. So, difference of perspective and experiencing of each other. The QR code is right there if you want to know a little bit more about that. But the story is more than kind of narrative. It is kind of going on the timeline of us from that diagnosis to the different levels of acceptance. We talk about the siblings' perspective. My husband talks about the father's perspective. But really, we want to do is leave the reader with, yes, it was hard. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, there were challenges. It is a difficult and often challenging marriage and family experience. But just because something is difficult or hard doesn't mean it can't be rewarding and good. Difficult and hard does not equal bad. It just means different. So challenges for special needs families. I've kind of mentioned some of these before, but the different medical people, protocol, and therapies that become part of your system, the finances for all of that, even if you have great insurance, a copay is still a copay. And if you're going to 3 therapies a week, that's 3 copays a week. In our situation, both children were in therapy. So I was taking a child to a therapy every single day, Monday through Friday. And we did have good insurance, but even with really good insurance, OT and PT are usually combined and you get like 30 of those a year, even though there's 52 weeks. And usually your therapist wants to see you more than once a week. So eventually that insurance is going to tap out and you're going to start paying things out of cash. So the finances can be a stress and a strain. The family relationships. I've had clients who's had the situation where like a grandparent will be like, well, I'll watch that child, but I won't have that child. Or you can come to the family reunion, but really don't want that child to come. So there can be your community, as Leilani was talking about. I'm trying to build your community and try to, whether it's your church or faith or school or even your extended family, might not want you to be a part of that. So finding that community, finding people who will accept you and your family, your marriage situation for who you are and accept you for who you are, your quirks and differences, that is huge to your self-care, your mental health, and for your family as well. Helping, Leilani mentioned finding your tribe. Well, it's very important to help your teen and your adolescent to find their tribe too, find their people, because they need belonging and community as well. All of this, if it sounds exhausting, it is. Maintaining all of this, the joke is kind of like I'm the executive function lobe of the family, or I was as the neurotypical non-autistic person. And so usually mom or wife, not always, is carrying a lot of mental load. And there's not really a lot of people who get that. And so again, finding your people, finding your community, finding a group, a small group that can help share that with you. For our tagline is also, you're not alone on your journey, is very important. You also got to give yourself time for education. Of you weren't born with a manual for children anyway, but then when you have a child with needs or differences, there's kind of understanding whatever the syndrome or the delay or disorder or difference is, and then your own child. What is your own child like? Getting to know your own child and what would be the best supports and helps for them. Time management is huge, and kids on the spectrum and ADHD kids need some structure, and not all parents are gifted in being able to implement structure. So maybe getting a coach, the coaching field is so amazing now. It works so differently than counseling and clinicians, where you can like get a coach who's just going to help you with one skill and they helped you with time management. And then you can get another coach who can help you with executive function skills. You can get another coach, to help you with family relationships. So finding the right person to help you manage the things that you need, kind of forming your tribe, forming your community. And then ignorant people, you can't teach people who don't want to be taught. And so kind of letting down, I know in my 20s and 30s, it was like, I'm going to educate, everyone. And, but not everybody signed up for an autism lesson and not everybody cares about what's going on in your family and situation. So boundaries is important, saying no, and that you don't have to get engaged in every argument. When people say something silly about an origin of autism or, try to bring up something silly, still the refrigerator mother is still out there. I don't know how that theory is still out there, but there are some people who still believe that. I always say people who are unteachable or unreachable, and I'm not going to waste my time and throw pearls before swine, so to speak, if they're not there to learn me, my family. I'm not taking that on as my mission. So this is sometimes a controversial statement, but it's true. Mothers of children with autism have stress levels comparable to combat veterans. And that's because of all the different things that we've talked about and the mental exhaustion and the mental load that just comes with all of the things that we've talked about outside of, again, the person is not the stressor, but the life in the system does absorb a lot of stress. Just because some people are research oriented, I found 2 studies to kind of prove that point. And this one I actually thought was interesting. Single versus coupled mother study. They found that single mothers were 1.05 times more likely to report lower levels of environmental quality of life, while they were but they were 1.73 more likely to use acceptance as a coping style. But they found between the 2 types of mothers, there was really no difference in time use and stress between the 2 mothers. I thought that was very interesting. I thought the single mother would have certainly have had higher stress index for sure. And then again, the stress that can come is real. Cases were analyzed based on household and socioeconomic status, and it was found that 94.6% of the cases showed significant stress levels. And this is again families where there's an autistic member. So the study emphasizes the need for targeted support and interventions to address these elevated stress levels to improve family dynamics, especially for the parents of what they refer to as higher functioning children. Then my little note is that sometimes families with ASD level 1 kids, society actually puts higher stress on them because they, quote, don't look autistic, especially if they have high intelligence. There's higher expectation on them. Well, you know, they're a genius. Why can't they figure out how to sit in a chair and not bother Johnny at school? So sometimes for those who are ASD1 or higher functioning, their school, their teacher, their society, and sometimes parents might put higher expectations on them. All right, I call this the self-care starter pack. And so obviously Leilani went into way more details on various things that people could do for self-care. But when I am coaching a family or parents, I want to start very small because you don't have a lot of time and you might have to start carving your schedule, pushing things back, taking things off of your plate. But also to help with false guilt and false self-condemnation, start with something small and build in. So these are the questions that I try to get people to do. What's just something 3 to 5 minutes a day that you can do at the beginning or the end? And maybe it's as simple as your cup of coffee or deep breathing or sitting outside or playing with your dog. But it's the intentionality that I'm going to do something at the beginning and the ending of my day. And if it can be a value add versus an add on, if there's something maybe I'm already doing that I can just make it a little more intentional, we're trying to think creatively, not cause more stress on give you one more thing to do for your day. Then I ask, where's 15 to 30 minutes per week that you can do something for yourself? And I'm totally in alignment that it shouldn't be a screen thing. Maybe it's reading a book or your favorite devotional or taking a walk or just sitting outside in your favorite chair. But where can you find 15 to 30 minutes per week that you're going to schedule for yourself? You're going to put it on your agenda. This is me time. And maybe it's an extra long shower or an extra long bath. I'm a bath person myself, and I like the candles and I like music and all that kind of stuff. So anything that kind of gives you that time. Where 2 times per month can you do a coffee or lunch with your partner, friend, or family? And that doesn't have to be meaning out. It could be at each other's houses. It could be a picnic in the park. It can be as inexpensive as you need it to be. It could be bring your own lunch, you know, but it's meeting people. It's getting out of isolation. It's building joy. It's building relationships. If coupled and you can't go out, becoming creative with your at-home dates. So maybe you have to have a helper or assistant or someone to watch your autistic child, because if you have a child on the spectrum, you're probably not getting the average babysitter. And so sometimes you have to start with having your dates at home or doing something creative with you and your partner where the child is in another room and someone else is helping, so that you can just turn your brain off from the child for a little bit and focus on each other as partners. My husband and I really love the adventure date pack for busy couples. You can get this thing. Sometimes they're really good ideas and sometimes they're really corny. But at least if it's stupid, you're doing something stupid together. And it's usually 30 to 60 minutes, something that you have in your house. It'll tell you if you need to go buy something or tell you if you need some certain food or whatever. But it kind of takes the mental load off of coming up with something. And so you're just trying to do that and experience it together. I also think respite at least 4 times a year. So that's once a quarter, at least a day away. Again, with Leilani, I go up to North Georgia all the time. We pick a winery or a city. We just went to Ball Ground, actually. Picking little cities and little towns to go explore, to do something different, especially, if you're in the car for just an hour, get out of the city, go do a thing and come back. We have to, because we have a dog. So we got to get back to take care of the dog. So you can take these day away. If you can get weekends away, that's great, but that depending on your resources and how your child is impacted. Where's your support? If you're a coach or a clinician, help the parent put together their support team. Coach them how to build a team. Maybe they are so stressed in their mental load and they can't make one more decision or think one more thing. Help them walk through those steps. Where can we find people? Like Leilani was saying, where do we find people? Where do we look? Who maybe that that you haven't thought about? So building community and building the team. And then self-advocacy. Some people don't know how to advocate for themselves. We say that, like, go have self-care, go advocate for what you need. First of all, some people might not even know what their needs are. So might have to back that all the way up to, hey, what do you need? What is it that you need right now? Or as Leilani said, what makes you come alive? What makes your spirit come alive? Because if you've been in go mode, go mode, go mode, get up, do the thing, do it the next day, you might have lost yourself. Like for me, it was very important. I never wanted to be like autism mom. Autism mom is not who I am. I am a mother of someone on the autism spectrum. I am the wife of somebody on the autism spectrum, but I am Stephanie Christine Holmes, and I have needs, wants, and desires that are outside of my marriage and family. So focusing on who am I, and are there parts of me that I lost? If I was an artist or a musician, but I put that aside when I became a mom, maybe I got to find some of those parts of me back, or a way to integrate that in a way that I can now for where I am now in my family. So who am I? Who do I want to be? What are my needs? And then we might need to teach them how to self-advocate, how to say no, how to make boundaries. 3 simple rules of boundaries that I've learned. First of all, boundaries don't change other people. If you think you're going to boundary someone and think they're going to change, that's not the purpose of the boundary. The boundary is, what am I willing to do and not willing to do? Where am I willing to invest my time and not willing to invest my time? And who am I going to allow into my life and not allow into my life? Who gets to be a voice and who doesn't get to be a voice? The naysayers, the negative people, the haters, they don't get to have a voice. And I need to learn how to block those voices when I know if I'm doing the best thing for my family and my family system. Not everybody who gives advice is giving great advice. But sometimes some of the parents I work with get caught up in like a victim martyr mentality. It's just going to be bad, and this is going to be difficult. And if that's the way you think, then that's going to be difficult to find your joy and self-advocate and look for creative solutions to community and all the other things that I've talked about. Finding yourself, recreating yourself a bit. Again, has part of you died or been neglected? Well, it's time to resurrect that part. It's time to get living again and time to get moving. And finally, if you want more information, I have my own show. If you are a person of faith, I am a person of faith and actually an ordained minister. If you want to know more about autism, marriage, and family and faith, the purple box right there with the QR code, that would be my personal podcast. But I am also an interim host on Springbrook Converge Autism Radio. I am one of about 6 or 7. And on that podcast, it would not be anything that is faith-based, but clinicians or ABA or teachers, educators, adults on the spectrum. There's a wide variety of people who host Converge Autism Radio, but I've been happy to be a part of that for about the past 3 years. And then I decided to launch my own, because there was a lot of people who were asking questions about faith or wanted to talk about their faith integrated into their family system. And my own podcast gave me that ability to do that. So thank you for being here today. I was talking really fast to get it all in, but I guess we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you. There is a question, and they think your presentation is great, but maintaining emotional stability is an important goal of theirs as an autistic husband. However, because of a lack of emotional understanding, conflict resolution is challenged by a lack of empathy. Can you share some examples of how your husband was able to make successful bids into fights to bring you both back together?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of back it up. I'm going to go a little bit geeky on brain science a little bit. So one of the things that we know about that's different in an autistic brain versus a neurotypical brain is there is a structure or piece called the OFC, or the orbital prefrontal cortex. And we know that that piece is underdeveloped in the autistic brain. Also, if you've experienced trauma, then that part of your brain may also be underdeveloped. The awesome thing about that part of the brain is it's neuroplastic for the rest of your life. Now, what's important about our topic today and the question is that the OFC has three main things. It's your identity center. It's what I tell myself about who I am, and my community reminds me of who I am. It's also where we are the center of your relationship circuits, how I relate to other people. And then thirdly, it has a center for regulation. So I'm going to kind of center in on that piece for a moment. So sometimes kind of where you're at, whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, your capacity may not be very big for other people's emotions or your own emotions. And so what you would start with is learning to build your capacity and learning to build some of your resiliency. And part of that is learning emotional regulation, which is going to tie right back to what Leilani was talking about. First is self-care. So from a lot of the people that I work with on the spectrum, they're usually not very much in touch with their mind, body, and spirit, which is why sometimes, like young children, they don't know when they have to go to the bathroom. They don't know when they're hungry. They're sick and they have not been checking in. So first of all, no matter what your neurotype is, learning to do body scans and just check in with your body throughout the day, because you can get into work and you can get stuck on a Zoom meeting and you're not even looking away from your screen. So just doing things like body scans. Where am I tight? Where am I? What's clenched? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to get up and walk around? Does my body need to move? So learning where I am in time and space, then what do I need? And learning to put those breaks in throughout the day. I usually have my autistic clients about once an hour do something. Stand up, swirl in your chair, kick your feet out, go take the stairs, go get a drink of water, do something that's kind of getting you moving. So we're building our capacity first by knowing my body and where I am in time and space. Then two, what is my capacity? What triggers me about other people's emotions? And then the way to actually grow resiliency is through relationship and joy building. So our brain needs joy and our brain needs quiet. So some of the quieting practices might be nature or a shower or reading an actual physical book. Joy can only be done with another person or a dog or a cat. So building the joy center in your brain, building the quieting in your brain, building your capacity first, is then your breathing, and then yoga or learning to control your breath. And those things will help build that capacity. So that's actually what my husband and I started to do together, was start doing those things, appreciations, gratitude, journaling, going to North Georgia on Saturdays sometimes together to get out of the city to do a thing together. That starts to build your capacity. It doesn't necessarily fix your relationship, but I got to say all the way back, if you don't build your capacity through self-care and building that skill, the other things aren't going to matter.
Thank you. That was good. I think that's for everybody, not just, answering the question. The other thing is I really appreciated your self-care starter pack. I mean, it's something where we always talk about it, and I know, we had talked about it before. Yeah, we all know we have to do this self-care, but we get so busy, and how do you implement it? And really, I think that 3 to 5 minutes a day, that would be great if I could just start there and go through and really, I kind of wrote everything down. I'm just going to start checking them off and see, what I can accomplish, because it was just so helpful. I mean, both of you gave such great information on it. And we did put the links to their websites, or the addresses to their websites in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out. We will also send a recording, or posting when this recording will be done, so you can access it. And we will be sending some information once we get it from the presenters. If they agree to share their slides or their emails, all that, we will send it out to everyone who is registered. So even if you know people that wanted to join us and couldn't, you are able to share that. And I just want to thank everyone for participating, especially Leilani and Dr. Holmes, for taking time out of their busy schedules to help us all on self-care. And really, this is time for questions. If you have them, don't hesitate to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll give everyone a few minutes. And please access our survey so that we can help figure out how the program committee can meet your preferences going forward for programming days, times, topics, things like that. We're always trying to meet the needs of our members and our community, and so that's one way we can get that information so that we can help you. And thank you all again. We'll give everyone a few minutes to see if they have questions.
May I say one thing to the other person's question? On my podcast, my husband has his own segment called Just the Guys. And on Just the Guys, he and 3 to 4 other neurodivergent men, either ADHD or autistic, will talk about a skill that they're working on, kind of where they've had fails, where they've had successes, and just kind of talk amongst themselves, which is why it's called Just the Guys. And they release one of those once a month. We kind of were hearing that from our listeners that like, hey, I'd like to hear Dan talk more. And when we're together, I tend to talk the most. So that little segment might be helpful to hear from other men who are kind of in the same journey and learning in their relationships too.
No, that's great information. And just so everyone knows, a few months ago, we did have a program that you can access through the YouTube channel on couples, and we had like social workers, counselors, some psychologists kind of talk about couples counseling, and then we had some couples talk, and everyone was really interested in hearing more from the couples. And so it is a program we are looking to redo, more focused on the couples and what they have to say, and kind of giving their experiences that could answer some of these questions too. We're looking to do that sometime in the future. We're not sure when. We're trying to organize everyone's schedules so that we can do it. And that's be on the lookout for that. And thank you both again for taking your time out of doing this. I know you're both busy. And I do look forward to your third book that we were talking about coming out. And thank you all for coming, and see you again next month.